You're shaking. Is it the child or the truth? The words came from Serena. Calm, cruel, surgical. She was in her graduation gown, standing center stage, clutching a 5-year-old girl with honey-brown curls and Elias Northwell's eyes. The auditorium had frozen. Marisol's fingernails dug into Elias's wrist, her voice a whisper. Why is she looking at you like that? The little girl was still, watching, like she knew him, like she remembered him. You disappeared from my life, Elias, Serena continued, her voice cutting through the silence. But she showed up, before she could even walk. The crowd murmured. The dean stood back. A pediatrician stepped forward. Mr. Northwell, she said, steady and clinical. We can always confirm paternity later. But first, you should answer the question. A pause. Are you denying you're Lucy's father? He blinked. His fiancée was still beside him. The woman he abandoned was in front of him, and the daughter he never met was staring straight into him. And yet, the only thing louder than the whispers around him was the question he couldn't answer. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. I've missed you all so much. It's been a tough ride with some technical issues, but by God's grace, we're getting everything back on track. Thank you for sticking with me. Your support means everything. Before we begin, I want to say a little prayer over everyone watching, especially the women. To the women, may God strengthen you, comfort you, and fill your heart with peace and favor. To the men, may God guide you, bless your efforts, and give you wisdom in all you do. And may God's protection rest on every single one of you. Amen. If you're ready for today's story, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. My USA and UK family, I see you. And please watch till the end, because tomorrow I'll be dropping another story you wouldn't want to miss. Now, let's get into the story. He didn't answer. Couldn't. The room spun. The whispers turned to silence. Marisol's grip slipped from his arm. And just like that, everything in Elias Northwell's perfect life cracked. Because 5 years ago, he walked out of a hospital room and never looked back. The air in room 712 smelled like antiseptic and melted ice chips. Machines beeped steady lullabies in the background. Serena Whitlow's gown clung to her skin, damp with sweat and fear. Her hand rested on her rounded belly. Now, still after hours of cramping and blood, she'd felt it, something pulling, stretching, letting go. The doctor said she was lucky. The baby was hanging on, barely. Strict bed rest, no stress, no movement, no exceptions. She blinked slowly, drugged and exhausted, waiting for the door to open again. It had been 6 hours since the nurse called Elias. 3 since she left a voicemail. 1 since she'd stopped hoping. The door finally opened, but when Elias walked in, it felt like the light left the room with him. He wasn't carrying flowers or a suitcase, just his phone in one hand and a look on his face like he was already gone. Serena tried to smile. It broke halfway up her cheek. Hey, they said everything's okay, we just have to be careful. Elias nodded. Not a word. He scrolled his screen, thumb moving faster than his eyes. They're keeping me here a few days, but it's manageable. She reached for his hand. He didn't offer it. Can you stay? That made him pause. He looked up, eyes flat, calculating. Serena, I can't do this right now. She stared at him like he'd just spoken in another language, because maybe he had. You can't do what, Elias? He sighed, looked down again. The board called an emergency session. They want me in New York by tonight. If I close this round, we'll have 12 months of burn to scale everything we've built. Serena sat up a little, despite the ache in her side. Our baby almost died today. Elias didn't look up. I know, I'm sorry. She reached for the sonogram picture on her tray. Grainy, black and white, dated 2 weeks ago. She held it up like it was a flag he'd dropped. Can you just stay 1 week? That's all I'm asking. 1 week of showing up. Elias finally looked her in the eyes. You're strong, Serena. You don't need me to babysit. We've always said our future is built on sacrifice. She let out a shaky laugh. You said that, Elias. You say it when it's my body, my time, my life that gets sacrificed. A pause. You don't say it when it's yours. That hit him harder than she expected, but not enough to stop him. Look, this is temporary. We're almost at the finish line. When the company IPOs, we'll have real freedom. We can hire help, get a better place, maybe even leave DC. She was shaking now, whether from hormones or heartbreak she didn't know. I don't need the promise of later, Elias. I need you, now. The machines beeped louder, one of them alarmed. A nurse popped her head in, silenced it with a few buttons, and gave Serena a look that said, stay calm, for the baby's sake. When the door shut again, Elias checked the time. My flight's in 2 hours. He leaned in, kissed her forehead, and left. She didn't cry. Not when the door clicked shut. Not when the monitors started to sound like metronomes marking an ending. Not when the nurse came in again with another IV. She just laid there, one hand on her belly, the other holding a picture of the child whose father had already disappeared. Cut to 37 days later. Serena sat alone in a dim hospital NICU, staring through the glass at a 3-pound baby with a feeding tube and translucent skin. Lucy. She named her alone, signed the birth certificate with shaking hands. The nurse asked if the father would be coming. Serena didn't flinch when she said, no. Lucy had Elias's eyes. It made her chest ache in ways no textbook ever could explain. That night, when Lucy went into respiratory distress, Serena stayed up for 48 hours straight. No calls were made, no updates were sent, because no one was waiting on them. He said I was strong. He was right. Because strength is what you build when there's no one left to carry you. Some people only show up for the photo, not the fight. If you've ever seen someone walk away from what they helped create just because it was hard, then maybe this story already knows your heart. Lucy came into the world early. Too early. 3 pounds, 2 ounces. Silent at first, then one brittle cry that shattered Serena's spine. The nurse called it a good sign, but Serena didn't relax. Not when they took Lucy straight to the NICU, and not when they clipped a bracelet around her daughter's ankle and wheeled her away. She signed the birth certificate alone. Father, not listed. The nurse hesitated. Serena didn't. No, he won't be coming. Petworth, Washington, D.C., 6 weeks later. The apartment smelled like powdered formula and old radiator heat. 1 bedroom, 4th floor, no elevator. Rent was cheap, so were the locks. Serena worked nights at Trader Joe's on 14th Street, stocking shelves, cleaning spills, folding cardboard until her palms cracked. Her lab coat stayed folded in her backpack, along with her textbooks and breast pump. She lived in time blocks. 3 a.m. feedings, 6 a.m. pre-rounds, 11 p.m. shifts, pop quizzes on 0 sleep. Sometimes she'd nap on the bathroom floor at school. Sometimes Lucy would spike a fever at daycare, and Serena would sprint 6 blocks in flats that didn't fit anymore. The RSV scare hit in January. Lucy's breath came shallow and fast. Serena stood in line at urgent care, bouncing her daughter in a soaked parka, whispering over and over, "You're okay. Mommy's here. Breathe with me, baby. Just breathe." The nurse gave her a clipboard. She didn't even have insurance. But Lucy got better. They both did. 2nd year of med school came like a storm. Clinical rotations, anatomy labs, ER night shifts. Serena carried Lucy in one arm and Grey's Anatomy in the other. She memorized drug protocols while boiling bottles. She learned to recite lectures with one hand on a stroller and the other flipping flashcards. No sleep, no help, no plan B, just survival. Her mother died in April. Stroke. Fast. Unfair. See, Serena didn't have the money for the funeral. She borrowed $1,100 from a professor who didn't ask questions. She used the rest of her scholarship check to pay for cremation. Then she went back to class. Something inside her cracked, but never spilled. She thought about quitting every day that month. She didn't. 6 months later, George Washington University, dorm hallway. Serena sat on the cold floor outside the anatomy lab, backpack open, Lucy crawling in slow circles on a blanket beside her. The hallway lights flickered overhead. Serena was reading about neural tube defects when Lucy pulled herself up, wobbly, gripping a chair leg, and took 2 clumsy steps toward her mother. No witnesses, no phone to film it, no one but them. Lucy collapsed into her lap, laughing through drool and determination. And for the first time in months, Serena cried, but not from grief, from awe. While Serena was sterilizing bottles in a dorm sink, Elias Northwell was making Forbes 30 under 30. He built his empire on 3 things: disruption, data, and discipline. By 28, he'd raised $300 million in capital, sold his second company to a defense contractor, and bought a penthouse suite at the Four Seasons Hotel, Washington, D.C. He used it as his East Coast anchor, one of many homes, but the one he called base. There were no lullabies in Elias's world, just pitch decks, glass walls, and a view of the city skyline that made him feel invincible. She was smart, savvy, the daughter of a U.S. senator and the face of a biotech initiative that made her a media darling. They met at a defense tech gala. She complimented his cufflinks. He complimented her ambition. Within 2 months, they were Washington's power couple. Red carpets, GQ features, a joint appearance at the Smithsonian's annual gala. By month 6, she had her own closet in the Four Seasons suite. By month 9, they were engaged. Diamond ring, drone footage, rooftop champagne. The press called them the future of American legacy. They liked the way it sounded. Lavish fundraisers became the norm. Marisol hosted them on the rooftop, under rented chandeliers and curated jazz playlists. Photographers always caught Elias mid-laugh, one hand on Marisol's lower back. No one asked about his past. That was the plan. When a colleague raised a toast one night and joked, "First a wedding, then a baby, right, Elias?" He just laughed. "We're building a legacy, not a nursery." It got the right kind of laugh. Controlled, polished. The baby he walked away from didn't exist in this world. Not in the press releases, not in the penthouse, not in Marisol's curated Pinterest boards titled Future Hayes Northwell Family. Serena's name had been deleted from his history. At least, that's what he told himself. One afternoon, riding in the back of a black SUV between meetings, he scrolled past an ad for a children's clothing line. The model was maybe 5. Honey brown curls, sharp cheekbones, wide, searching eyes. Something about her stopped him cold. He stared for a second too long, then blinked, then kept scrolling. Coincidence, he muttered, tapping to the next screen. But his phone slipped in his hand and he missed the next call. Somewhere in D.C., a 5-year-old girl with those same eyes was learning to tie her shoes. Alone. Without a father. But Elias didn't know. He wasn't looking. Not yet. The applause faded before Elias even realized it had started. Across the stage of George Washington University, Lisner Auditorium, Serena Whitlow stepped forward in a black gown and crimson hood, diploma in one hand, and a little girl in the other. The child clung to Serena's hip with quiet confidence, curls wild, eyes steady. Elias stopped breathing. His legs stiffened. every sound in the room muffled, like the walls had closed in around him. He hadn't seen Serena in 5 years, but he knew those eyes, and they were his. Marisol leaned in, voice low but sharp. "Who is that?" Elias didn't move. "Elias, why is she looking at you like that?" Lucy was staring straight at him, her head tilted slightly, like she recognized something she'd only seen in the mirror. His stomach turned. Serena said nothing, didn't even blink. She held Lucy like a shield she didn't have to lift. Behind the stage curtain there was a stir. Then footsteps. A woman in a white coat emerged, Dr. Yvette Collins, Serena's pediatric advisor, known in DC circles, direct, unshakable. She stepped into the silence without hesitation. "Mr. Northwell," she said, as if addressing a courtroom, "we can schedule a paternity test, of course. But before we do," she paused, turning her head slightly toward the child, "she has your eyes. So I'll ask plainly, do you deny being Lucy's father?" The auditorium fell silent. Marisol let go of his arm. Elias didn't even notice. For 1 second he could hear his own heartbeat. The way it used to sound when he pitched investors, when he stood on the edge of the next big risk. But this wasn't a company. This was a child. His child. And the woman he left holding her. Serena's voice cut the air like a knife. "He left me in a hospital bed 5 years ago. But she didn't leave me. She held me together when he broke me." Lucy clung tighter to her. Elias looked at the floor, then at Marisol, who was now looking at him like she had never met him before, because maybe she hadn't. Not the version that mattered. If you've ever had someone ask a question you couldn't answer honestly, and everything you love was standing beside you listening, then please stay for what happens next. By morning, the headlines were everywhere. Tech billionaire blindsided by secret child during graduation ceremony. Elias Northwell's ex unveils 5-year-old love child, publicly. From IPO to DNA, Northwell empire shaken by hidden family. A photo from the Lisner Auditorium went viral. Serena in her gown, Lucy on her hip, and Elias in the background, frozen like a man watching his entire past walk back into the room. At the Four Seasons Hotel Washington, D.C., Marisol Hayes paced the suite barefoot, still in last night's dress. Elias stood near the window, silent, staring at a paused clip of the ceremony playing on a muted screen. Lucy's face filled the frame. Big eyes, unblinking. His eyes. Marisol finally spoke. "You said you wanted children one day." She didn't yell. She didn't have to. "You said we'd raise a legacy together. See, build something no one else had." Elias turned slowly. "I didn't know." Her laugh was sharp, dry. "You didn't want to know." Silence stretched between them until it snapped. "If you could hide a child, Elias, what else are you hiding?" He opened his mouth. Nothing came. Marisol grabbed her ring from the counter. No speech, no drama. Just one last look. "I didn't sign up to raise ghosts." She left the suite and didn't look back. That night, Elias ignored 10 calls from the board, 3 from legal, and 1 from a crisis PR team. His company's valuation dropped 8% in 12 hours. Investors wanted a statement, a family-friendly narrative, a redemption arc. But Elias couldn't speak. He sat in the dark, TV glowing, phone screen still lit with Lucy's photo. Someone had posted a clip of her waving to Serena after receiving the diploma. The camera had caught a faint smile. That smile broke him. He got up, poured a glass of bourbon with a hand that wouldn't stop shaking, sat down again, then stood back up. He grabbed the crystal tumbler and threw it. Glass exploded against the wall, shards scattered across the hardwood floor like splinters of every version of the life he thought he had. He sank to the ground. No answers, no spin, Just a man alone with the weight of a name he never passed down, and a little girl who had no idea her father had just broken, for the very first time. The free clinic in Anacostia smelled like antiseptic and weariness. No press, no cameras, no board members, just chipped paint, flickering lights, and the low hum of a waiting room at 4 p.m. See, Elias Northwell didn't belong here, and he knew it. He stood in the doorway like someone about to confess something in church. Serena was wiping down an exam table, her back to him. She didn't flinch when he said her name. Serena. She turned slowly. No surprise, just exhaustion. Lucy sat in the corner with a box of crayons, coloring a crooked rainbow. She didn't look up. Elias tried to find his voice. "Why didn't you tell me?" It came out softer than he expected, almost childlike. Serena set the disinfectant bottle down and crossed her arms. "You want an honest answer, or the one you can use for PR?" He shook his head. "I mean it. I deserve to know." Her gaze didn't soften. If anything, it sharpened. "You were building your empire, Elias. I was just another inconvenient update." He stepped closer, quiet, careful. "I would have helped. Would you?" She walked past him to the supply shelf, pulled out a stack of patient charts. "You left when I was 6 months pregnant. I was bleeding in a hospital bed, and you flew to New York for a deal." "I didn't know." "You didn't ask?" Her voice didn't rise. It didn't have to. It was the steadiness that made it cut deeper. "You always knew how to build things, Elias. You just never stuck around to hold what you built." He looked over at Lucy. She was now humming to herself, completely unaware of the storm unfolding 10 feet away. "She has your laugh," Serena said quietly, "but her favorite color's green, not blue. She hates broccoli. She can't sleep without Twinkle Twinkle, the slow version, not the bouncy one." She turned back to him. "She doesn't know who you are. And I'm not going to let you show up now just because you finally looked down long enough to see what you missed." Elias's throat tightened. "Please, just give me a chance. I'm not asking for you to forgive me, just let me get to know her." Serena's eyes flicked to Lucy, then back to him. "Don't confuse biology with presence." And with that, she picked up a clipboard and walked out of the room, leaving him there, standing in a clinic built on survival, finally seeing the cost of his absence. The envelope sat on the table between them like a peace treaty written in dollars. Elias had come prepared. His lawyer drafted the paperwork himself. A trust fund for Lucy, a shared custody proposal, even access to the best private schools in D.C. His signature was already on the last page. Serena didn't touch it. They were sitting in the back of the clinic break room. No suits, no staff, just the hum of an old vending machine and the kind of silence that made words heavier. "This isn't a buyout," Elias said quietly. "It's a start." Serena looked at the folder, then back at him. "You really don't get it." "I'm trying to do the right thing." "The right thing?" she repeated, a sad smile curling at the edge of her mouth. "You're 5 years too late for the right thing." He leaned forward, hands clasped. "Let me provide. Let me fix what I—" She cut him off. "She doesn't need your money, Elias." A pause. "She needs to know her worth didn't start with your name." That landed, like a punch to the ribs, not loud, but deep. Elias sat back, the silence louder now. "So what now?" he asked. Serena exhaled, slow and deliberate. "You can visit her once a week, supervised. But only if she says yes." He blinked. "That's it?" "That's everything." She slid the envelope back across the table, untouched. 3 days later, Lucy's daycare, Northeast D.C. Elias stood outside the playground fence in a black coat, hands in his pockets. He wasn't sure if she'd even notice him. Lucy was sitting on the grass in purple overalls, tying a shoelace with intense focus. Another little girl offered her a juice box. Lucy smiled, wide and crooked, just like his used to be. She looked up once. Not at him, past him. He didn't wave, he just watched. Not as a CEO, not as a man trying to fix a scandal, but as someone who'd missed too many moments he'd never get back. That night, back at the Four Seasons suite, Elias couldn't sleep. The lights from the city blinked across the ceiling. His phone buzzed with messages from his lawyer. He didn't open them. In the bathroom trash can, Marisol's ring still sat at the bottom, untouched, gleaming beneath crumpled tissues and broken glass. Elias didn't reach for it. He lay there in the dark, eyes wide, staring at nothing. Because sometimes silence isn't peaceful. Sometimes it's a reminder of everything you could have been, if only you'd stayed. 6 months later, the folding chairs in the elementary school auditorium creaked with every shift and shuffle. Cheap stage lights buzzed overhead. Paper stars dangled from fishing line. Elias Northwell stood in the back. No cameras, no headlines, no Marisol, no board meetings waiting. Just him, and a stage, and a child he was still learning how to love the right way. Serena sat in the third row near the aisle, hair pulled back, hands clasped in her lap. She didn't turn when he entered. She didn't need to. She knew he would come. Lucy stepped onto the stage in a glittery yellow dress, one strap slipping off her shoulder. She tapped the microphone twice, then looked down at her shoes. The music started. "This little light of mine." Her voice was soft, wobbly. She scanned the crowd, squinting under the lights, and then she saw him, Elias. He wasn't hiding. Their eyes met, and something in her face changed, just slightly. A shift, a knowing. Her voice cracked on the next line, but she kept singing, and when she smiled, it wasn't wide or staged. It was small, earnest, brave. After the show, parents flooded the hall with flowers and balloons. Kids ran down the aisles, loud and giddy. Lucy walked straight to him. No hesitation. Her curls bounced with each step. She stopped just in front of him and looked up. He bent to one knee. Not to impress her, not to prove anything, just because it felt like the only honest thing left to do. Lucy reached out and took his hand. "Thank you for coming." He didn't speak, couldn't. Behind her, Serena stood in the shadows, watching. No smile, no frown, just stillness. This wasn't forgiveness. This was presence. And for Elias, it was enough. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a CEO, not a billionaire, not a brand, just a father. Finally standing still long enough to witness something beautiful that didn't require fixing. Just faith. If you've ever hurt someone you loved and prayed for a second chance, I'd remember, it's not words that heal. It's who stays to witness the song. If that moved something in you, follow this story to the end. You made it to the end. Thank you for watching. But here's the truth. The next story is even more shocking and emotionally charged than this one. Click the image on your screen right now to watch it, and subscribe to the channel so you're always first when new stories drop.